Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. And as I've said before, interestingly enough, I could have named it Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, the Kabbalah, Satanism, the Illuminati. So many isms, occult, mysticism, secret societies, cults. What's going on? What is there out there in this occult world, witchcraft world, and spirit world? Let's agree that we are all spiritual beings, and we're all not, all of us, evil. Some of us think we're okay. Nobody's perfect. But what's it all about? So, a new book review. Series 135. Mysticism. Evelyn Underhill. This book was published in 1911. Little picture on the inside here, interesting. What is there we should know? I've been reading from this book off and on over the years, so I thought it was probably the appropriate time to do a video on chapter 5, let me get you the number here. Chapter 5, Voices and Visions. It's an old book, so we can probably agree the information has not been tainted by people in recent times. Evelyn Underhill was quite the researcher. We'll look at her for a moment. But before I do that, let's look at some other books about why I'm embarking on all this information about the occult, channeled material, prophets, psychics, mediums, channelers, the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, secret societies, morals and dogma, witchcraft. What is going on in the world that maybe we should know about? Like in the Encyclopedia Judaica, I made quite a few videos on the Kabbalah, and I will continue to look at that so we can figure it out. The way of the Jewish mystic. So I suspect if you've been watching my videos or you're halfway alive, you're aware of communism and Zionism and the Illuminati and the plans for a new age and a new world order. So what does Jewish mysticism, Jewish mystic, the Kabbalah have to do with it? Apparently, everything. According to the Encyclopedia Judaica, the videos I've already made, it's part of the Jewish culture throughout their history. So that's important. The Talmud, the Zohar, all these books on mysticism, the occult. What is it? Maybe we'll learn a little bit about that in this video. Occult visions. Occult visions. What do people see? What have they seen throughout thousands of years documented? A mystical gaze into the future. Books like that I'll be reading. Okay, so what is mysticism? What is the occult? Who are these gods or false gods? paganism. Ooh, now what do they want? Got books like this that say, beware of familiar spirits. Just because somebody's communicating with you, voices in your ear, visions, beings you can see, telepathic information, things you hear in your mind, sounds like somebody else's voice. Some people would think you're mad if you talked about it. Beware of familiar spirits. Dreams. The Zohar, one of the many popular secret information books by the Jews, the essential Zohar, the source of Kabbalistic wisdom. There we get the Kabbalah and the Zohar. What is there we should know? What about the Egyptian hieroglyphics? Who were those gods? Why is Horus the all-seeing eye on the US $1 bill? Who's Moloch? Who's Mithras? Who's Ra? Channeled material, the raw material that I've already made. Seth, Jane Roberts, her channeled material. Abraham, Esther Hicks. Cryon, Lee Carroll, and so many more. Ramtha, J.Z. Knight. So in the series number 23 I made on Aleister Crowley, known as the evilest man alive, for some of these sinister things that he did to children, some of the beings he was communicating with, Lamb and Iowas, go watch my series 23, apparently said the beings who look like gray aliens were ministers for some of the Egyptian deities on the Egyptian hieroglyphics. So what does that stuff have to do with our world today? And alchemy, magic, Hermetic teaching. Keep watching my videos. We're going to go over this stuff and go over this stuff and go over this stuff until we get it. Major trends in Jewish mysticism. We'll be making more videos on this book. Look at the size of it. And I collect all these documents and pictures of the beings. Look at the top of this picture here. What's going on? What's going on with the secret design behind UFO abductions, the Watchers? Who are the Watchers? Who are the Archons? Are they the fallen angels? It seems so. Who are the gray aliens? Are they communicating with people? Wasn't it Iowas and Lamb, who look like a gray alien from Aleister Crowley's drawings, who were giving him all the information that was clearly evil and sinister? Go watch my video, series 23, Aleister Crowley, the Book of the Law. Forbidden science. Why are there so many secrets? So I've been making a lot of videos and going over the channeled material, over Jewish mysticism, over Zionism, communism, New Age, New World Order, alien information, and the plans, apparently, for some big event to change the world you and I live in. And apparently there are some beings from the other side, the invisible reality, the spiritual realm, a higher dimension, maybe even beings from a lower dimension. So when I read from this book, an old book I've had for quite a while, Mysticism, Evelyn Underhill, it just might be a little eye-opening. I looked up Evelyn Underwood on Wikipedia just to give myself a little bit more knowledge. You can look it up. Plenty of material out there. Fascinating woman. Born in 1875. Apparently she died in 1941. And was an English Catholic writer and a pacifist. She was anti-war and anti-violence. And she was one of the most widely read writers on such matters of religion and spiritual practice, particularly Christian mysticism. So remember we talked about Jewish mysticism? It started in her early years as a young child when she had abrupt experiences apparently from a different plane of reality. Did she hear voices, have crazy dreams, see visions and beings? She was from a pretty wealthy family over there in Europe. Her husband and her father were barristers, lawyers, and yachtsmen. So that must have been an interesting life, living the opulent life, being able to do whatever you want, study whatever you want, sailing, socializing. So she had plenty of time, plenty of money, and she did a lot with that. 1925, her writings became more focused on the Holy Spirit. So what do we know? I'm a Christian. What do we know about the God and Jesus, his Son, and the Holy Spirit? The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity. I'm not an expert on other religions, but I'm studying. But this thing going on with the New Age and the New World Order, the occult, mysticism, Zionism, communism, and apparently the plot to depopulate the planet, and also talk about ascension with David Wilcock, Corey Goode, and so many others, and some kind of beings communicating, Galactic Federation, Planet Nibiru, Anunnaki, all this stuff, trying to make sense of it. All these channelers channeling all these entities, who are they talking to? Should we be concerned? All right, here it says here, the enormous excitement in those days, back in late 1800s, early 1900s, was mysteriously compounded of the psychic, psychological, occult, and mystical. I've got many books on those topics, and apparently it was the talk of the day during the 1800s and early 1900s. Mysteriously enough and strangely enough, that kind of research or stuff in the public media kind of died right after or before World War II. And we know Hitler was into those activities, communicating with some kinds of beings and getting a lot of technical assistance for some of the weaponry he was doing. Least we forget Nikola Tesla said he wasn't the genius we all thought he was. He wasn't coming up with a lot of these ideas. He was having visions, hearing things in dreams. So were these beings from the other side transmitting these technologies to Nikola Tesla and others before him and after, apparently, to turn us into this technological age we're in now, 2017. And they brought us with Einstein, that technology, nuclear weapons, and all the cameras and technologies to monitor and spy on people. Computer in a numerology calculator is 666. That's kind of weird. Computer equals 666, the mark of the beast. Jade Helm, they were using software technologies to make decisions using meta tags for all of us, some kind of games and exercises, I suspect, for the real thing eventually. So it won't be humans making a decision whether who dies and who lives immediately. The computer will determine, again, by what you say, what you purchased for books, what videos you were watching, religion you might be, religion you might not be. Strange? Concerning? Alright, so they were into the occult and mystical back then, and a rediscovery of the feminine. And of course we have the homosexual, pansexual, transgender, adultery, everything goes. Do as thou will, as Aleister Crowley was teaching. And a lot of the channelers are promoting free will. And also the material I've been going over stated clearly that there's a big misunderstanding about sin. There really is no sin. It's only experiences. And experiences are important for your soul growth, your personal evolution, spiritual evolution. You gotta pay attention to the details. Alright, so rediscovery of the feminine and the unashamedly sensuous and the most ethereal spiritual. This age of the soul was one of those periods with a sudden easing. Got to get off on the right foot here speaking. Of social taboos brings on a great sense of personal emancipation and the desire of El Dorado. Some kind of fantasy reality, despised by an older, more morose and insensitive generation. So they are targeting the people who are apparently, so they say, stuck in the old ways. If you listen to the channeled material or read the New Age material. So she pursued a daily regimen that included writing, research, worship, prayer, and meditation. And apparently she was connected with some of the people of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was one of the organizations, I believe, that Aleister Crowley was involved in, maybe even established. So with that said, I'll start reading from the book, throwing in my 2 cents as we go along to try to clarify this information, to make it simple enough for people like me to understand it. That's why I pre-read it and read it again, and making these videos, I get to read it again. And then maybe I get it. Voices and Visions, page 266. And as you know, I highlight material. So let me just start reading and see if it makes sense for you. We now come to that eternal battleground, the detailed discussion of those abnormal psychic phenomena which appears so persistently in the history of the mystics. So the people who study these occult sciences. And to make it clear and simple, I call it witchcraft. Although even shamanism and other abilities, holistic healing, using a pendulum to find water, using the natural sciences, knowing things that most people don't know. So you could walk around in a field and take a pendulum and ask your mind as you're walking slowly, is there any water streams below me? And you keep walking and walking and you keep asking that question, focusing, that's the key. And then as you cross over a stream underground, all of a sudden it starts gyrating. And usually it's only a couple of feet, but you put a stake in the ground and you keep on walking, you go over a few feet and you come back across the field, go back across the field, go back across the field. And when you get done, you back away and you see a line of stakes in the ground, which shows an underground stream. And that's where you drill for water or dig a well. And they've been doing this for thousands of years. Just another example of some of the occult, magical technologies. Visions, audio, telepathic, voices, dreams, beings appearing out of nowhere. What's that got to do with our reality today? And apparently, it has everything to do with it. Forbidden science. Stuff they don't want you to know. The all-seeing eye on the dollar bill. Why is that there? All this satanic occultic rituals we see, like Indiana Jones movies rituals. Tying people to a post and burning a fire and beating the drums. Go watch Katy Perry. Go watch Madonna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga. Okay, so what's that got to do with this? History of the mystics. That is to say, visions, auditions, auditory, automatic script. Some people can take a pencil, clear their mind, and ask the beings from above to move their hand. And all of a sudden it moves and it writes things. Some people have a strong ability to do that. Most of us, we have to practice and try. All of us are a bit psychic. But of course they do put fluoride in the water, which calcifies your pineal gland between the two lobes of your brain. Looks like a little pine cone about the size of my thumb. So I believe the powers that be knows that it calcifies your pineal gland, and they don't want you to be psychic. Automatic script writing, and those dramatic dialogues between the self and some other factor. The soul, love, reason of the voice of God. And I tell people all the time, people go, well, God talks to me. And I'm going, I believe there could be entities talking to you. But how do you know it's from God's world? What is he saying? Or she saying? Or it saying? Does it look like a gray alien, like Aleister Crowley's Lamb and Ios? Does it look like a man with a beard, like Helena Blavatsky's master she communicates with? So you got all these beings. I thought it'd be cool to read about Evelyn Underhill and mysticism. So the voice of God, which seems sometimes to arise from an exalted and uncontrolled imaginative power, sometimes to attain the proportions of auditory hallucinations. I wonder how many people have been accused of being mentally ill because they hear or see something. I had a friend of mine once, a redheaded girl, and everywhere we went, and she swore it, and I believed her, but she could see ghosts, and it caused her a lot of problems, even having her children taken away. Here, moderate persons are like to be hewn in pieces between the two great powers who have long disputed this territory. On the one hand, we have the strangely named rationalists who feel that they have settled the matter once and for all by calling attention to the obvious parallels which exist between the bodily symptoms of acute spiritual stress and the bodily symptoms of certain forms of disease. These considerations, reinforced by those comfortable words, autosuggestion, psychosensual hallucinations, and associate neurosis, which do but reintroduce mystery in another and less attractive form, enable them to pity rather than blame the particulars of the great contemplatives. French psychology, in particular, revels in this sort of thing, and would, if it had its way, fill the wards of the mental institutions with patients. The modern interpreter says that Rufus Jones finds in the stigmata of St. Francis of Assisi a point of weakness rather than a point of strength. So there's a lot of famous people named in this material who had these psychic abilities. And again, some people would say it's a mental derangement. Some people would say you're communicating with other beings. Not the marks of a saint, but the marks of an emotional and physical anomaly. This is a very moderate statement of the rational position by a writer who is in actual sympathy with certain aspects of mysticism. So again, because of the secret societies, the people behind the New Age and the New World Order, I just thought it might behoove me in my research and sharing it with other people to try to find out what the heck mysticism is. What is the occult? What is witchcraft? Why do they sacrifice people? The answer is a little crazy. Apparently, right at the moment of death, when the spirit leaves the body, I suppose it could be captured. Are there forces out there that actually feed off of spirits? Maybe I'll find out the truth. Maybe I won't. But I'll know a little bit more than I did by continuing to read and share this information. Yet it may well be doubted whether this flame of living love, which could for one dazzlingly instant, weld body and soul in one, was really a point of weakness in a saint. Whether Blake, another famous person, was quite as mad as some of his interpreters, or the powers of St. Paul, another famous person, as mad as some of his interpreters or the powers of St. Paul and St. Teresa, another famous person, are fully explained on the basis of epilepsy or hysteria. Okay, so where do these channelers that I've been going over, from Esther Hicks, J.Z. Knight, Lee Carroll, Barbara Marciniak, Jane Roberts, and the other ones, Natalie Glasson. Gotta look at my books to remember all of them. Ernest Norman, Edgar Casey. Really been going over a lot of material. I've got other ones to go over. Nancy Leader, communicating with the Zetas. The Zetas look like gray aliens. Did you know that? Aleister Crowley communicating with Lamb and Hiawas, known as the evilest man alive, and I made a video, 23, series number, on the Book of the Law. That was some very sinister material, that his Lamb and Hiawas look like gray aliens. I was startled when I discovered Nancy Leaders and all those other books I just showed you are with the gray aliens. And you know, with technologies today, you can aim like a microwave, a small hand-sized microwave antenna, at a person from across the street or across the football field, and they'll hear something which they think is their own mind. You won't hear it over there. When it hits you, it'll be talking to you. And I believe they can do that now with cell phone technologies, TVs, and other kinds of electronics. I think we're all in for a very interesting time in the future. This mind control and this propaganda, beguilement, and deception that a lot of people are able to see. All right, so it was epilepsy or hysteria, some of these famous people like St. Teresa, somebody would accuse them of. Whether finally it is as scientific as it looks to lump together all visions and voices. This has been going on for thousands of years. Prophets, even Jesus said to the Pharisees and the Jewish people, the religious sect that was opposed to his Jewish sect, the Essenes, ye are the killers of your prophets. And throughout history, people who could apparently communicate with the other side We're killed. We're burned at the stake. We're hung. We're beheaded. No small thing. From Wandering Willie to the Apocalypse of St. John, so in last book of the Bible, Revelation, some people think he was mad. As examples of unhealthy cerebral activity. This lady, Evelyn Underhill, wrote a lot of books and spent 40 years or more of research, intense, had all the time and money to do it, made a big name for herself. But I just thought it might be wise for us to look and see what she said. As against all this, the intransient voluntaries, so this would be uncompromising people who were into the study of religion, voluntaries, of the supernatural. So the uncompromising people who were studying the supernatural seemed determined to play into the hands of their foes. There were a lot of people who were against this stuff. The Dark Ages, oh my Lord, the people that were abducted, in prison, beheaded, and tortured, and burned at the stake was insane. And then with the Reformation or the Reformation, during the Renaissance period, kings and princesses of all kinds of European countries were ceasing to be thinking like the Dark Ages, and the world changed. Thank God for that. Now, the question is, where are we today? Planet Nibiru, the Destroyer, all the stuff by the channelers and the material. We're getting ready to enter another dark period, and a lot of the channelers, the stuff I've been going over, say that we're on the verge of a huge catastrophe, the human race. Go watch my videos. That's why I've been going over this, looking for the common denominators. They pin themselves, for no apparent reasons, to the objective reality and absolute value of visions, voices, and other experiences which would be classed in any other department of life as the harmless results of a vivid imagination, and claim as examples of the miraculous interference with natural law, psychic phenomena, which may well be the normal if rare methods by which a certain type of intuitive genius actualizes its perceptions of the spiritual world. Materialistic piety of this kind, which would have us believe that Saint Anthony of Padua really held the infant Christ in his arms. So people see images, even maybe of Jesus, and they have a vision that they're holding the image of Jesus. And that the Holy Ghost truly I get speaking for about a half an hour, start losing my voice. All right, back to the book. And that the Holy Ghost truly told the Blessed Angela of Foligno that he loved her better than any other woman in the Vallo of Sapatio. And she knew him more intimately than the apostles themselves, is the best friend of the rationalist possesses. So can you imagine somebody said they saw a being, something like God, and this being said that they loved that person more than anybody else? What would you believe? It turns dreams into miracles and drags down the symbolic visions of genius to the level of pious hallucinations. Even the profound and beautiful significance of St. Margaret Mary Alacoque's visions Lots of people here, famous people. I don't know, you don't know. But apparently it's mentioned here, so if you get your notepad like I do and take notes and look this stuff up, you can further your knowledge like I do. So Mary Alacue's vision of the Sacred Heart, a pictured expression of one of the deepest intuitions of the human soul, caught up in the contemplation of God's love. So apparently when you meditate, do yoga, whatever, incantations, and you contemplate on God or whatever, you can help yourself have psychic experiences. Has been impaired by the grossly material interpretation which it has been found to bear. So too, the beautiful reveries, dreamy meditation, like I said, people are into this stuff big time. Meditation, yoga, these days, out of the New Age material, the chakra systems. So the beautiful reveries of Susa, I gotta look up Susa, S-U-S-O. It seems he's mentioned here a lot. The divine visitations experienced by Francis, Catherine, in dreary meditation. I look up these words when I don't understand them. There's a lot of words I don't understand. Like I said, this is a slow process, putting this together. Saint Teresa, Francis, Catherine, and countless other saints. So who are saints? People who could communicate with the divine beings, angels, God, what? Demons? And countless other saints have been degraded in the course of their supposed elevation to the sphere called supernatural, a process as fatal to their truth and beauty as the stuffing of birds. I like Evelyn's writing here. All this too is done in defiance of the great mystics themselves, who are unanimous in warning their disciples against the danger of attributing too much importance to visions and voices, or accepting them at their face value as messages from God. But there's a warning here. I showed you the book. Beware of familiar spirits. Nevertheless, these visions and voices are such frequent accompaniments of the mystic life. So the people who study this stuff, who join secret societies, get initiated to become illumined. It's a frequent thing to hear voices and to see visions. So maybe we're getting a little bit closer to what the occult is, and the witchcraft, and mysticism, and the Kabbalah. Beings from the other side, like Hitler had these entities helping him with technologies, Nikola Tesla. So some of this information from beings from the other side is not necessarily beneficial to humanity. Like the Dark Ages was not beneficial to humanity. And they cannot be ignored, this information, these beings, these prophets, these people who can hear and see things, who study mysticism, witchcraft, Kabbalah, and Rosicrucianism. Any of these secret societies. What do they know? Why do they swear on a Bible under threat of having their throat cut or killed in a more horrific way to keep all this stuff secret? Why is the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill with the pyramid? Who were the beings that Eric von Donovich in the Gold of the Gods, I made a video on that book, that looked like gray aliens? Let me show you that. I was showing this to a friend of mine today. But if you know this book, One of my series is on this book. But the gray aliens of Aleister Crowley, the gray aliens of Nancy Lieder, prophesizing that planet Nibiru is coming, a pole shift is coming. And I remember pretty good when I go over these books. But according to Eric von Däniken, in Ecuador, look at this. Look at the gray aliens. Look at the pyramid with the all-seeing eye on top. Is it just my imagination? What are these beings? Apparently this stone was found in Ecuador, and under a black light, it glows. There's the name of the video there. You can look it up. So who are these beings? What are they telling us today? If you go listen to the channeled material. So they cannot be ignored. The messengers of the invisible world knock persistently at the doors of the senses, our senses. Not only at those we refer to hearing and to sight. In other words, supercentral intuitions. So we're all intuitive beings. You ever have one of them deja vu moments where you stop suddenly, or even your car, you look just in time to save yourself? In my opinion, we already know that the brain, the right side, is the one that's connected to the higher dimensions, operate at as a super higher frequency than the left side. So you have two brains, the slow one that's paying attention to this reality, and the one that picks up on intuitive things, when it controls your whole body, all the cells, the operational system. And these people with the New Age and the New World Order are very knowledgeable on this stuff, and they're tapping into our systems. And with the movies, TV programs, newspapers, talk shows, magazines, school systems, medical establishment, economic, politics, wars, 9/11, World War I, World War II, they're changing our world. And apparently it has something to do with beings from the other side, as we've just seen with the information on the gray aliens. Whether it's the Gold of the Gods in Ecuador, Aleister Crowley, Nancy Lieder, and so many more books. I probably got 50 books over here that talks about the gray aliens. Can they communicate with us? Are these the beings? Even Whitley Strieber. These beings seem to be able to walk right through a wall and appear. And according to Stephen Greer in Serious Disclosure, you can get a group of people, go down the beach and do incantations, some kind of prayer, and beings appear. So I'm just trying to find out what's going on with this mystic stuff. Mysticism, Kabbalah, New Age, New World Order, Ascension, depopulating the planet, a new race of human beings. All this is mentioned in the channeled material I've been going over. That's why I decided to back off and look at a little bit of book, like a little definition, a little talk about mysticism, voices, and visions. All right, supercentral intuitions, the contact between man's finite being and the infinite being in which it is immersed, can express themselves by means of almost any kind of sensory automatism. So automatism, maidism. Some words are just difficult to say. Okay, here are some of these isms. Strange sweet perfumes and taste, physical sensations of touch, inward fires are reported over and over again in connection with the spiritual adventures. Those symbols under which the mystic tends to approach the absolute easily become objectivized and present themselves to the consciousness as part of experience rather than as modes of interpretation. And remember, they're using all these symbols: triangles, pentagrams, stars, barn stars. And I believe they have some kind of geometry, some kind of power, some use. Witchcraft. And again, some of this stuff may be beneficial to humanity. But when I use the word witchcraft, people get it quickly, whether it's good witchcraft or bad witchcraft. Voodoo. Think about that. How does voodoo work? It's actually quite simple. Just like a guy who uses a pendulum. Let's say somebody's lost in the national forest. Two hikers. The parents are freaking out and they call the forest rangers. They have no idea where to go look for these people. So they get a hold of a psychic. I've got books on this. I've gone over it. And the psychic says, well, I need some hair or some clothing or something. And he holds it in one hand. And what is he holding? He's holding a vibration. And then he uses his mind, and the mind is infinite. The right mind is connected to everything. He asks, where on this map, in this area, are these people? Just like finding water. And he scans up and down. And all of a sudden it starts gyrating. And he puts a little X on the map and he hands it back to the forest rangers. They take a helicopter, go there, and there the people are. More times than you can count. One guy was missing in the winter in the north. And so the family contacted a dowser after they contacted the police. And the dowser got a piece of his clothing and went over the map, and right in the middle of a lake that was completely frozen over, he said, well, this is where the pendulum is saying, the spiritual world is saying this person is. Nothing they could do about it in the middle of winter. But in the springs, when the lake thawed, they sent some divers out there, and there was the truck and the guy. Apparently he was driving his vehicle out on the ice. These are true stories. And there's many more. I've studied the dowsing and this stuff 2 or 3 years before I ever got into the conspiracy theory. So it was a slow process for me to get into this, what the heck is going on in our world? What do they know that we don't know? What are they using against us for economic gain and power over us and deception? What are they telling us about God? Are they telling us lies or truth? If you only knew. But if you start asking questions, like Jesus taught, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find. Once you start looking into it, you start uncovering things. It's amazing. The knowledge which is obtained in such an approach is wholly transcendental. That's beyond normal, transcendental. It consists of an undifferentiated act of the whole consciousness, in which under the spur of love, life draws near to life. So you are who you think you are, which I think is true to a great degree. You start thinking and working towards a goal. Let's say you want to go to school and be a doctor. That's will. You have strong will if you really want it. And the path seems to unfold in front of you. But when people think that they're doomed or they can't make it, or like a lot of young people these days, their perception of reality, because they're aware of all these unseen forces controlling our world, the police state, the school system, a lot of them abandon all hope and just decide to go out there and live a la natural and become weirdos or freaks and are proud of it, become rebellious and fight the system. They're alert and they think there's nothing they can do. But amazingly enough, they have almost an infinite power, in my opinion, especially with prayer and belief in God, which they don't want you to do. Apparently, in the newspaper the other day, I mentioned it in my last video, the Supreme Court said that the North Carolina legislators, during one of their congresses, meetings, had a prayer, and it was unconstitutional. There are forces trying to take this divine ability and right away from the rest of us. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they're afraid. Okay, thought, feeling, vision, touch, all are hopelessly inadequate to it. Yet all perhaps may hint at the intense perception of which they are scattered parts. And we shall endlessly be all had in God, says Julian, in this supreme experience. So interestingly enough, whatever you think God is, we're all spiritual beings, which I suspect that's part of what God is too, where we came from. So to want to be closer to God may be beneficial to us. But then again, you don't want to be closer to unclean spirits or demons. So I guess you got to pick your God. Satanism, Luciferianism, or whatever, Ra, the all-seeing eye, Horus, whatever they give you, these channeled entities, Abraham, Seth, Cryon, the Ra material. I'm not trying to say which ones are bad or good. I'm trying to say we should look at it and investigate. Moving on with this stuff. Supreme experience. Him verily seeing and fully feeling. Him spiritually hearing and him delectably smiling and sweetly swallowing. All these so-called hallucinations of the senses, which appear in the history of mysticism, must then be considered soberly, frankly, and without prejudice in the course of our inquiry into the psychology of man's quest of the real, of the truth. So we shouldn't toss this stuff out and say, I don't care. Your life, your family's life, your children's life, humanity might depend on a lot of us waking up for the planned new age and new world order. Microchipping people, depopulating the planet, the CIA and other governmental organizations, the Navy, etc., involved in biological weaponries, plagues and stuff. What do they do if they have an economic collapse that they create and they don't want to deal with millions of people? Would they just let loose some of this plague material, nuclear weapons? It's in the news. It's bringing it to our consciousness. And what you think about, you bring about. The question for their critics must really be this. Do these automatisms, visions, voices, touch, dreams, which appear so persistently as a part of the contemplative life, people who contemplate, people who think, people who seek, search, represent merely the dreams and fancies, the old digested precepts of the visionary, objectivized and presented to his surface mind in a concrete form? Or are they ever representations, symbolic, if you will, of some fact, force, or personality, some triumphant spiritual power external to himself. So are there some kinds of beings external to ourselves? Seems that history certainly says there is. Even those beings in Eric Von Daniken's book that look like gray aliens, and all those other beings and symbols of DNA and stuff that was apparently there before the Great Flood in the Andes Mountains in Ecuador, South America. Huge caverns. You could park a 727 jet in there, apparently cut out with laser beams, with some kind of a safe haven for some humans prior to the Great Flood. And the Hopi Indians have that as part of their history also, and all over Europe and all over the world. We Christians have it as Noah's Ark. Interesting. So there were beings before the Great Flood. That's where we get all these monuments like Baalbek in Lebanon, or the pyramids and Sphinx, and monuments all over the world. Machu Picchu, those giant lines in Peru. But there's no doubt there were advanced societies before the Great Flood. And with the Nazi leader, with talking to the Zetas and Barbara Marciniak with the Palladians and so many other people, talking about Planet X, Nibiru, pole shifting. What are we to believe? Who's telling us the truth? I'm a little leery when it's out there coming from these gray aliens, which are the Zetas. Symbolic, if you will, triumphant spiritual power external to himself. Is the vision only a pictured thought, an activity of a dream imagination, or is it the violent effort of the self to translate something impressed upon its deeper being, some message received from without, which projects this sharp image and places it before the consciousness? So these people who have psychic happenings in their life, visions, dreams, and we've all had it to some degree, intuition, deja vu, thinking of somebody, talking about somebody, then they show up. What's all this mean? The answer seems to be that the voice or vision may be either of these two things, that the pathology and religion have both been over hasty in their eagerness to snatch at these phenomena for their own purposes. So all this stuff may be quite normal for the spiritual world to communicate with we spiritual being in these biological bodies, but have religious and other institutions snatch this knowledge, the Shamatic knowledge, which they tried to destroy, Library of Alexandria, which they did destroy, all those books, to keep this information from the rest of us, whether it's Kabbalah, Zohar, Talmud, Zionism, communism, secret societies, witchcraft, mysticism, so that these people can be powers and elites and abusers of humankind. Good question. Again, the truth could set us free if we learned we had this ability and possibilities. Talking to God. Not making deals with the devil, like a lot of people in Hollywood apparently talk about on talk shows and break down in tears that they made a deal with the Illuminati or these Hollywood characters. You see that stuff on YouTube. What are we to believe? Spirit cooking, Pizzagate, child abductions, trying to pass laws to lower the age of sex with children. There's so much out there. Don't even look up Illuminati, Talmud, blood libels, witchcraft holidays. You're going to learn some things that might just be a bit disturbing. I looked up witchcraft holidays on the internet, and I prayed to have those images taken from my mind. Crazy, insane things with children. Sabbatai Zevi, 1666, that Jewish rabbi who said he was the Messiah, and he determined there was a whole new set of commandments that were opposite of the Ten Commandments. You could be closer to God by marrying a prostitute or something, a woman that was doing bad things, and much worse. So what does that have to do with the rainbow agenda, transgenderism, pansexualism, and all that? Is there some kind of intentional paradigm shift while they're trying to discredit and get rid of Christianity and apparently the Islamic religions and other religions? Is there something going on from the spiritual world? Is Lucifer and some kind of cast out angels, archons, watchers, are they in control of Earth? Is there a cosmic battle going on that's also seeing that kind of activity here on Earth? We're entering a new age, the age of Aquarius. And if you've been watching my videos and the ones I'm going to make in the future, this is not an unusual conversation. It appears that's exactly what's happening. So eagerness to snatch at these phenomena for their own purposes. A lot of us will agree, like the Pope at the Catholic Church. And if you look at history, there have been some good popes that banned Freemasonry, banned all this stuff. And some of them have unbanned it or even promoted now, like the current Pope, that says we don't need to follow Jesus or that path to be saved or whatever, and that all religions of the world should unite. That's part of the New Age and the New World Order, globalism and one world currency. Trying to get everybody to be dependent on the system. And who's going to be in charge? Who are the entities behind this thinking on this couple 100-year-old plus plan? With CERN opening up portals. In Geneva, the long-time homeland of the Illuminati, and the origin of the Frankenstein myth. Bohemian Grove over there near Germany, Bohemian Grove in California. So many clues. Many, perhaps most, voices do but give the answer which the subject has already suggested. To itself, many, perhaps most, visions are the picturings of dreams and desires. I was out at a restaurant the other day. We were chit-chatting with somebody before some show. And for whatever reason, I said, yeah, it's crazy. I keep hearing this ringing in my ear. And the lady next to me goes, yeah, I hear it all the time. And my other friend said, yeah, I hear it all the time. Apparently, we're all hearing this ringing. Suppose it's detrimental, apparently, to our minds. What's going on? We're talking about voices and visions, mysticism. Some are morbid hallucinations, some even symptoms of insanity. All probable borrow their shape as apart from their contents, from the suggestions already present in the mind of the seer. So what do you think? Aleister Crowley drawing a picture of Lamb and Aiwass that looks like a gray alien. Eric Van Donigen, the gold of the gods, going down to Ecuador, finding those 3-foot-tall plates with the pyramid and the all-seeing eye and beings that look like gray aliens. Whitley Strieber and his abduction books. Barney and Betty Hill. The beings are described like gray aliens. Who's communicating with us? And are they malevolent, evil, or benevolent, helpful? Or is there a mixture? Have to be fair and balanced here. But there are some experienced by minds of great power and richness, which are crucial for those who have them. So this would be voices and visions. These bring wisdom to the simple and ignorant, sudden calm to those who were tormented by doubts. They flood the personality with new light, accompanying conversion or the passage from one spiritual state to another, arrive at moments of indecision, bringing them with their authoritative commands or counsels. So voices and visions actually giving people authoritative commands or counsels, advice. Opposed to the inclination of the self, confer a convinced knowledge of some department of this spiritual life before unknown. Such visions, it is clear, belong to another and higher plane of experience from the radiant appearance of Our Lady. How many incidences out there recorded where the Virgin Mary appears or statues start crying? The pious exhibitions of the sufferings of Christ. So remember, Jesus Christ talked about a lot of this stuff, casting out unclean spirits, demons, raising Lazarus from the dead, healing the blind. You suppose God sent Jesus to show us the way, to open our eyes? And what commandment did Jesus add during his lifetime? His 3 years of preaching before they crucified him. We are to love one another. And they crucified him. Isn't that crazy? They were in fear for their power. The Pharisees and the other Jewish leaders. Not all the Jewish people. A lot of them were followers of Jesus. Sufferings of Christ, which swarm in the lives of the saints and contain no feature which is not traceable to the subject's religious enthusiasms or previous knowledge. These, in the apt phrase of Godfernex, apparently that's some guy, are but images floating on the moving deeps of feeling. So throughout history, there are a lot of people saying you're just having a hallucination. Whitley Strieber, that really wasn't a gray alien that abducted you. Aleister Crowley, what do you think you are? Bringing the people that satanic message from Lamb and ayahuasca that looks like a gray alien. Nancy Leader, those gray aliens, those Zetas, why are you telling people they're telling you that Planet X is coming, Planet Nibiru? And all these channelers, why are they saying that Earth is in dire straits preparing for ascension and a great catastrophe, and a new race will evolve afterwards? Why? And the material says there's no sin. It's just experience. Don't worry about it. It's part of the evolution of your soul, your spirit. Don't be judgmental. It's just an experience. Don't be hateful and stop other people from having these not so-called sinful experiences that most of us would call sinful. But it's not sin anymore. It's just an experience. This is New Age teaching. Duality. Wake up to it. And again, I can't make up the minds of other people. You decide what it means to you. To me, common sense says some of these sinful things, well, are wrong and we shouldn't be doing them. These politicians, these people that are creating wars, murdering millions of people, and want to disarm we the people. Why do you think they want to disarm us? Monitor us, spy on us, create this new age, new world order. Why do you think? Because they love us? Tell that to the Arabs in the Middle East. Tell that to the people who died in World War I, World War II. Tell it to the American Indians. Tell it to the natives in Africa and South America, Central America. China, Philippines, Vietnam, Korea. I could go on and on. Revolutions caused by certain peoples. What were their religion? What religion depicts going out and being evil? What religion, as Jesus said, preaches that we should love one another? What religion says, don't kill and don't steal? Don't covet, don't bear false witness. There's only one God. Honor thy mother and father. So to me, it's not a difficult decision which way I'm choosing and going. Apparently, a lot of influence going on in the world. They say that 85% of the people are under some kind of mind control. Most of us are caught up in the Republican Democratic politics in the USA, which the puppet masters are controlling both sides. We don't have a leg to stand on. I don't care which party you choose, you're being played for a fool. And apparently they're into these occult mysticism, communicating with some kind of beings, galactic federation, as David Wilcock, Corey Good, Stephen Greer, Serious Disclosure, and so many others are talking about. Project Bluebeam is supposed to fake some kind of invasion of some kind of beings. Are we all going to be fooled by the deception? All right, back to the book. Some tests then must be applied, some basis of classification discovered, if we are to distinguish the visions and voices which seem to be symptoms of the real transcendental, beyond normal, activity from those which are only due to imaginations raised by the nth power, to intense reverie, our visions, what we see, or psychic illness. That test, I think, must be the same as that which we shall find useful in ecstatic states, namely, their life-enhancing quality. So, how do you tell what's a hallucination or a mental illness, and what might be communication from the other side of beings trying to help us? So, their life-enhancing quality. Those visions and voices, which are the media by which the seeing self truly approaches the absolute, which are the formula under which the ontological perceptions are expressed, are found that by self to be sources of helpful energy, clarity, and courage. They infuse something new in the way of strength, knowledge, direction, and leave it physically, mentally, or spiritually better than they found it. So why did they crucify Jesus, who was healing and preaching love one another? The power elite felt threatened. Why did they want to microchip us and monitor us and spy on us and control our finances, cause economic destruction, so they can take our wealth away? The same reason why they crucified Jesus. They were afraid of us waking up, afraid of us having this knowledge and power of the other reality, and of our own ability to manifest our own reality by using positive thinking. We are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. Could one assume that we have more abilities than we know? Why are they putting fluoride in the water so we don't use our psychic abilities? Why? Those which do not owe their inception to the contact of the soul, which external reality, in theological language, do not come from God, do not have this effect. So are there beings not from God who are talking to people these days? What is mysticism? What is the Kabbalah about? The Zohar, witchcraft, Illuminati, secret societies? At best, they are but the result of the self-turning over of her treasures. At worst, they are the dreams, sometimes the diseased dreams, of an active, rich, but imperfectly controlled subliminal consciousness. And you take people out there that are evil, and there's a lot of them. I don't want to name names in USA politics, Actually, it would be pretty hard to name somebody who's not on the evil side, because they all get groomed or they wouldn't be there if they were legitimate people trying to help we the people. They are there to keep the elite in power and the government in power, and to deter the people from waking up and knowing the truth about things like World War I, World War II, 9/11, Zionism, Syria, the banking system, sustainability, global warming, climate change. Why did they change the name from global cooling in 1960 to global warming in 1980 to climate change in 2000? They can't get their story straight. And it's the people that are waking up are their problem. We are the problem to them. Ignorance is our problem. We need to wake up. Since it is implicit in the makeup of the mystical temperament that the subliminal consciousness should be active and rich, so we should be using our subconscious abilities. They should be active and rich. I agree. People should be contemplative, should be thinking, should be very sound in their thinking, what's right and wrong. Intention. And since the unstable nervous organization which goes with it renders it liable to illness and exhaustion, it is not surprising to find that the visionary experience, even of the greatest mystics, is mixed in type. All right, moving on. Once automatism, abilities, hearing, seeing, touching, dreaming, once you wake up your psychic ability, once automatism has established itself in a person, it may be easily become the expression of folly as of wisdom. So again, learning this stuff takes a little bit of discernment. But be careful. Could be detrimental, dangerous, as we've seen the books, Beware of Familiar Spirits. Who are you talking to? Even Jesus taught, test the spirits. Be sure of who you're talking to, who you want to talk to, if you embark on this contemplated meditation yoga. How many people go into it completely ignorant of what could happen? Just a thought. As with anything in life, being smart is probably not that difficult if you just think about it. In the moment when inspiration has ebbed, old forgotten superstitions may take its place. So how many people would go out there and find out that somebody could communicate with beings on the other side and accuse them of being evil? And some people may be using it for selfish, evil purposes, like voodoo or something, or kill somebody else. Let's say one politician wanted to get rid of another politician so he could win the race. He could use voodoo to make the other politician sick. Business owners, factories, having people die. Seeing into the future, remote viewing. How about the stock market? What are we up against? What's fair? What's not fair? I think ignorance is not fair. But we can fix that ourselves. When Julian of Norwich in her illness saw the horrible showing of the fiend, red with black freckles, which clutched at her throat, so these are famous paintings or beings or stories of the past, with its paws, when St. Teresa was visited by Satan, not always good entities out there, who left the smell of brimstone behind, or when she saw him sitting on top of her chest and dislodged him by the use of holy water. So she awakes and there's the devil, there's paintings of this, perched on her chest, and she gets some holy water and throws it at him. It is surely reasonable to allow that we are in the presence of visions which tend towards the psychopathic type. So are some of these beings from the other side psychopathic? And how many humans are psychopathic who would go out and try to communicate with these beings for money, power, and perversions? Again, go on YouTube. Look at people telling about the Illuminati, confessing. People who escaped witches' covens. That one book I went over on Freemasonry, this guy, see his name on the bottom. See, look at the being here. Freemasonry Symbolism. Beyond the Light, series number 117. By the way, on my rickmiracle.com website, I updated the list of all my videos. I'm up to 135 right now, and some of them I've made even 10 videos, 8 videos, 6 videos. So 135 series, that's 135 books or authors, because sometimes in the series I have more than one book. I don't create new series, like 7 books on Jane Roberts, channeling Seth and other stuff. And the same thing with Edgar Casey. I've got 6 or 7 books, but I just give it one series number. Edgar Casey is like series 112. But on my website, rickmiracle.com, open the front page, look over to the left. You'll see list of videos. Click it, cut and paste, so you can print it out, so you can look at videos in the particular order that you would like to look into material. But even series number 23 that I made recently, I had some holes when I reorganized the videos. I had to go fill in. Or this one here with Van Doniken, The Gold of the Gods. I've made a couple videos on him, and I've got another book. I'll make another video. So it isn't a matter of getting the series numbers up. I also go back and make more than one video on each certain books, like Henry Ford's The Jewish Problem, the Encyclopedia Judaica. I've got all 16 of these that would stack up this wide, and things like anti-Semitism, communism, Zionism, the Jewish Messiah, and all the details that we should know. I like to give credit to a lot of people out there who supplied the material that I researched where I got the information. Harry Hubbard, I like watching his videos, a kind of an amateur or self-made archaeologist, very smart guy in coins and ancient sites and books and material. He was going over the Encyclopedia Judaica, and I said, man, I got to have a set of that. It took me about a month or so to collect all 16 books, finding one at a time on different used book sites in different places. But I think I purchased them all for about $100. And if you have the entire set, you can get $600 to $1,500. So a lot of books you buy these days, you might get good deals. Like if you check the list of my book reviews and the authors and the names of the books, and you can find some of them for $1 or $2 or $3. It's probably smart to build your library, because the prices I'm noticing on some of them are going like this. People are waking up, and it's harder to get the books. All right, back to this. So St. Teresa, visited by Satan. Can you imagine? And there's paintings and the different materials you can find. Just look up St. Teresa on the Yahoo image site, and I'm sure it'll be there. Then there'll be a link there that'll take you to that info. Becoming aware and knowledgeable about this stuff with the internet is not hard to do. Although, interestingly enough, it does say in the end times the knowledge will spread all over the world about the truth. So I guess everybody will have an opportunity to wake up and realize which side they need to be on. According to David Wilcock, Corey Goode, and all these other people into this ascension and Galactic Federation, Nancy leader. Again, I'm not saying anybody's bad or good. I'm saying it's an interesting investigation, and look at it and decide for yourself what you want to believe. But they're talking about a catastrophe on Earth, some kind of merger or separation of planet Earth into two planets, and some people are going this way and some people are going that way. And the channelers and their entities that they're channeling talk about an impending doom coming on planet Earth. The Vedas, the Palladians are telling Barbara Marciniak, Lee Carroll, J.Z. Knight, Esther Hicks, Natalie Gosselin, and so many others. So that's why I thought it'd be kind of cool to look at this mysticism by somebody who studied it and wrote a lot of books, and this was published in 1911, over 100 years ago. So she's kind of the expert on this stuff. So I thought I'd just read from it and have a conversation and see where it takes us. So here he had St. Teresa, a devil on top of her chest, and she threw some holy water on him to get rid of him. She exorcised him. What's with the exorcist? And my point also is that it concerned me when I talk to lots of people out there in public. And they go, Rick, get with the program. It's a new world. There is no God. There is no Christianity. They're all evil. In 1910, 1920s, they had congressional hearings by the communists and other people that they were planning on infiltrating the system and getting everybody to think that way, to ruin the society as we know it. There is a celestial battle between good and evil. If you can get that in your mind, and there are beings out there like this stuff says, I think that's the beginning to waking up. And the beginning of empowering ourselves to some unfathomable abilities. Healing ourselves, being aware even of all the toxins in the foods. So much advantages to start asking questions and looking into stuff. All right, so going on with the book here. It is surely reasonable to allow that we are in the presence of visions which tend towards the psychopathic type and which are expressive of little else but the exhaustion of the temporary loss of balance on the subject's part, which allowed her intense consciousness of the reality of evil to assume a concrete form. So do we manifest reality? Project Montauk, where they had that guy sitting in the chair with all the electronics, and more instances of this. And he could amplify his thoughts and actually created some kind of monster that ravaged and destroyed part of the base. Go look it up, Peter Moon. I made series of books on that stuff too. 75, 74, 73, 76 in my series. Like I said, go to my website, rickmiracle.com, left side, click it, cut and paste a list of all my series and all how many videos. But all that's there. I think this September, October will be 4 years of making videos since I started reading books and studying since 2005, 13 years ago. Trying to figure out one thing. WTH, as I like to call it. What the heck is going on? A lot of people use the HELL word, what the hell. But I just wanted to find out what's going on back then when people were losing their homes in Argentina, Germany, the USA, and all this craziness in the world in 2005. And then prior to that was 2001, 9/11. I just said, statistically speaking, as a sort of educated guy, worked in electronic technology at a major aerospace company for 10 years, It just common sense told me that we can't have stupid people running everything everywhere. Something intentional had to be happening. Back to the book. Because we allow this, however, it does not follow that all of the visionary experience of such a subject is morbid, any more than Oedipus, Tyrannus invalidates Prometheus Unbound. So why did they make a movie called Prometheus? Do you really want to know? It involves everything we're talking about. So much of the people who control the movies and the TV programming, like Modern Family, 2.5 Men, Seinfeld, they sleep with a different girl on every show, and promoting this new age, a new line of thinking that there is nothing evil, there is nothing wrong, there is nothing sinful. We're all under attack. They're dumping chemicals in the sky, stuff in our food, on the TV, mesmerism, flicker rates, cell phone technologies. Man, these people are tweaking everything to our detriment. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm reading. I think people should believe there's another reality out there. And I think that we weren't born and put on planet Earth to be stupid and ignorant. And if everybody woke up, I could stop making videos. I just wanted to share, after I was studying for about 10 years, what I had learned. I thought to myself, what good is it that I know all this? And you can't have a conversation one-on-one with anybody because there's so much information. How can you squeeze that in a conversation? It's just more questions bring on more questions. I've got 500 hours on YouTube, and there's millions of other hours of other people's material that is valuable. Take my list of videos and topics and use it as a guide to go watch some of those people, authors on all those books I went over, and conversations by other people who have investigated it. Doesn't have to be mine. This isn't self-gratification for me. If people take the ball and run with it and go out and write some famous books and get the word out, then I've done my job. All right. Or occasional attacks of dysphoria invalidates the whole process of nutrition. So no matter where you go with this material, some of the psychics, some of the material is going to be suspect or evil. Doesn't mean it's all suspect or evil. Just like where the communists and people back then wanting to corrupt our society, 1910, 1920s, and they testified in Congress that they were doing it. And they even put priests in the churches who were doing things to discredit the churches. They planned on it, they did it, and I've got the books, I've been going over it. So we the people need to get over it and realize that they want us to not believe in our systems, not to believe in God, not to believe in doing the right thing, family values, a healthy environment, honest politicians. They want us to believe the propaganda, the bombings and the shootings, and they have to disarm us. That we're the problem. We weren't the ones who build power plants and don't put filters on them so we can make more money. They do. Dumping all the chemicals during the industrial age into the rivers and byways. We didn't do it. They did. And all over the country dumping sewer from sewer plants into all of our ponds and lakes and rivers until they found out that the silt was building up inside these bodies of water and killing all the fish. We didn't do it. They did it. People were making money. And all the while, for the last couple 100+ years, all over the world, there were Jewish people who were bent on having their own homeland, and they were organized and working on it to get the state of Palestine to create the state of Israel. You think about what you bring about. These people have been busy for hundreds of years. And they're into mysticism and the Kabbalah, and they know about beings on the other side and how the law of attraction works. Do you know how the law of attraction works? Is there a law of attraction? All right, the perceptive power and creative genius of mystics, as of other great artists, sometimes goes astray. You think? If all these people who were doing all this evil in the world were to use their powers for the benefit of humanity, can you imagine where we would be? The 60, 50 billion a year sent over to Israel? If half of that was used here in the United States to take care of the poor and the people who need things, we would all be quite happy. If half of what they give away to Israel were to stay here, we would have new bridges, buildings, jobs. We would all be living in the Garden of Eden. Is there any doubt about that? There would be no crime. There wouldn't be polluted food, GMOs, fluoride in the water. But it is what it is. We have some detrimental forces working against us for their own gain. And they don't want people to know the truth about beings, whether they're good or bad. The truth about reality, the truth about history. That visions or voices should sometimes be the means by which the soul consciously assimilates the nourishment it needs is conceivable. It is surely also conceivable that by the same means it may present to these surface intelligent things which are the productive of unhealthy rather than of healthy reactions. So can people use all these occultic witchcraft technologies, how to use nature? Some people believe they already have free energy, but they don't want to share it with the rest of us. If they can't tax it, it's no good to them, and they want to keep their power. Just like that one book review I made on the report from Iron Mountain. They were afraid with nuclear weapons they couldn't have a war anymore, and they used wars to keep people patriotic. World War I, World War II, go look into that stuff. Go watch my videos. Go watch other people's videos. Buy some of the books on my list. They pitted us against each other intentionally. They sold lots of weapons. They gained lots of money, gained lots of property. They took control of our presidents and our governments, creating the Federal Reserve in 1913 during the Christmas holiday. If we would cease once and for all to regard visions and voices as objective and be content to see them as forms of symbolic expression, ways in which the subconscious activity of the spiritual self reaches the surface mind, many of the disharmonies noticeable in the visionary experience, which have teased the devout and delighted the agnostic, would fade away. Visionary experience is, or at least may be, an outward sign of real experience. So apparently the invisible reality is as reality as this materialistic reality, me sitting here talking. And it's where I came from, and all other humans. We're all spiritual beings, and these bodies die. The spirit goes on, according to my research. It is a picture which the mind constructs. It is true that raw materials already at its disposal, as the artist constructs his picture with canvas and paint. But as the artist paint and canvas picture is the fruit, not merely of contact between brush and canvas, but also of a more vital contact between his creative genius and the visible beauty of truth, so too we may see in vision. So a lot of people who become great artists, who work hard, they communicate with the higher dimension and get greater abilities, become more creative, see different kinds of beauty. Like I said, a lot of us could do this. There is hope. There's a lot of positive to reality. So too we may see in vision, where the subject is a mystic, the fruit of a more mysterious contact between the visionary and the transcendental beauty or truth. Such a vision, that is to say, is the accident which represents and enshrines a substance unseen. The paint and canvas picture which tries to show up the surface consciousness, that ineffable sight, that ecstatic perception of good or evil. For neither extreme has a monopoly, to which the deeper, more real soul has attained. The transcendental powers take for this purpose such material as they find amongst the hoarded beliefs and memories of the self. Hence, Plotinus sees the celestial Venus, Sosa, the eternal wisdom, Saint Teresa, the humanity of Christ, Blake, the strange personages of his prophetic books, others more obviously symbolic objects. So there's a lot of documentation about prophets and people with abilities. Just like me getting into this research, I had no intentions of getting into the paranormal. I was just buying some books by ex-famous inventors and scientists because I felt back then, 2005, 2006, 2007, that the system, the educational system and everything, was hiding some technologies. Remember, I was in technology for 12 or 13 years. I worked at a major aerospace company for 10 years. So I decided to buy old books and see what these people were thinking and teaching 100, 150 years ago. And I found out largely a lot of them were psychic when they were children. Their fathers were ministers. They got hit in the head and altered the blood flow to the pineal gland. I said, oh my, this is a whole path of reality for me I never knew existed. Saint Ignatius Loyola, for instance, in a moment of lucidity, saw the most holy Trinity as it were under the likeness of a triple pentrum, or the three spinet keys, and on another occasion, the Blessed Virgin without distinction of members. So people studying, meditating in religion have these voices and visions. And now we go on the computer, the internet, and we can listen to Esther Hicks, R.J. Knight. Is it R.J.? J.C. Knight. With Ramtha. And Jane Roberts with Seth. Lee Carroll with Cryon, and so many more. Edgar Casey, his books. Nancy Leader, the Vedas, which look like gray aliens. What's up with that? Visions and voices, then, may stand in the same relation to the mystics as pictures, poems, and musical compositions stand to the great painter, poet, or musician. They are all the artistic expressions of creative results. Remember, the government and private companies now teach remote viewing. You can pay $1,000 or $2,000 a week and go learn how to leave your body. I got books behind me I could pull off the shelf. I've been reading the material. Creative results of thought, of intuition, of direct perception. All would be ready to acknowledge how conventional and imperfect of necessity are those transcripts of perceived goodness, truth, and beauty, which we owe to the artistic genius, how unequal in their relation to reality. But this is not to say that they are valueless or absurd. So too with the mystic, whose proceedings in this respect are closer to those of the artist than is generally acknowledged. So back here in 1911, it seems like Evelyn Underhill had a sort of a positive opinion about these mystics, although she does acknowledge there could be some demonic entities out there, and some of this technology could be misused. You think? Look at today with the satanic symbolism everywhere. The Super Bowl halftime shows, the Emmys, the Grammys. If you don't know, watch those rituals. 2014, 2015 Super Bowl halftime shows. Go watch them. If you can't see it, you must be blind. They even have horns. Madonna's sitting in a throne like the devil. Listen to the lyrics of songs that are popular these days. Eurovision, which is like the American Idol program. In 2014, Conchita Wurst won it. Wurst means sausage, male unit. Conchita's a female unit. Dressed like Jesus in the head and a slim woman with a silky dress on the bottom. So was it a man or was it a woman? And the devil is androgynous. Singing the song, The Phoenix Rising, with the words, "You can't stop us." How much plainer does it have to be? The tunnel opening over there in Switzerland, in the Alps. Demons coming from the sky with horns and people dressed up like they're naked, having a sexual orgy on a railroad car, running past the politicians. How much clearer does it have to be? Who are these beings? Why do we have to have World War III? Why are they preparing for martial law or some great disaster? Jade Helm 15. FEMA camps want to disarm the people. False flags, guns taken away, bombings and shootings. Legislation, Patriot Act, which is not patriotic, and so much more. In both types, there is a constant and involuntary work of translation going on, by which reality is interpreted in the terms of appearance. In both, a particular mental makeup conduces to this result. So a lot of this stuff may not be so shocking. It may just be information. I guess you got to read all of it to get to the interesting stuff. In artistic subjects, the state of reverie, where you're meditating or thinking, tends easily to a visionary character. So if you relax yourself and meditate, tends easy to a visionary character. But again, you got to be careful. There are evil beings, like Carlos Castellano said in A Separate Reality, where the shaman had to teach him for a long time before he could let him loose and use peyote and walk in the desert. There were monsters out there that would immediately consume him. Thought becomes pictorial, auditory, or rhythmic, as the case may be. Concrete images, balanced harmonies, elusive yet recognizable, surge up mysteriously without the intervention of the will and place themselves before the mind. So go study yoga, meditation. Read some books. These things could happen to you. But you better be educated and understand what could happen to you. Thus the painter really sees unpainted picture. The novelist hears the conversation of his characters, and the poet receives his cadences ready-made, and the musician listens to the veritable music which pipes into the ditties of no tone. Even Nikolai Tesla said that he saw drawings and schematics and images, designs before he even started building anything, many times. He said that, not me. In the mystic, the same type of activity constantly appears. Profound meditation takes a pictorial or dramatic form. Apt symbols which suggest themselves to his imagination become objectivized. The message that he longs for is heard in his mind. So be careful what you ask for, you might get it. Hence those interior voices and imaginary visions, which are sometimes, as in Sousa, indistinguishable from ordinary accompaniments of intense artistic activity. I can see that it's going to take quite a few videos on Evelyn Underwood's book to get some of this material out there. All right, I'm going to read a little more and finish this video. Obviously, I have to make another one on this particular chapter, maybe 2 or 3. It's just a conversation, and I know I'm mixing the visions and voices with today's reality and people's beliefs. But in particular, with the Aleister Crowley, known as the evilest man alive, writing that Book of the Law in my Series 23, and Law and Iowas, those beings that look like gray aliens, it was just a coincidence, and it startled me to say to myself, watching the Nancy Leader material, exactly who are the Zetas? And I looked that up, and they were gray alien beings. And then in Eric von Daniken's books, those gold sheets about 3 feet tall had gray alien-looking beings. And 50 of my books on beings, abductions, and UFOs have gray alien-looking beings. And the other 50% of the alien conversation is usually about reptilians. Palladians are out there, avians, and many other beings. So do you suppose throughout history that these beings are the same ones mentioned in the Bible? And that there are benevolent good beings out there and malevolent evil sinister ones? And apparently they've been working in cahoots with the people in the secret societies and people that live in palaces or multi-billionaires, rich elites. Have they been using these beings or knowledge or mysticism, witchcraft, for their own advantage to the detriment of the rest of us, and causing the wars and destruction and mind control over the rest of us? Is there something we should know and we should wake up? I think the answer is obviously yes. So let me read a little more and finish this video. Where, however, artistic automatisms, hearing voices, seeing visions, dreams, automatic writing, spend themselves upon the artist work, mystical automatisms in their highest forms have to do with the transformation of personality, which is the essence of the mystical life. They are the media by which the self receives spiritual stimulus, is reproved, consoled, encouraged, and guided on its upward way. So who are these beings that take over these channelers, these mediums, these psychics, like Esther Hicks, Lee Carroll, or J.Z. Knight, Ramtha, Jane Roberts, and the other ones I've gone over, Nancy Lee Glasson, Edgar Casey, apparently communicating with the Akashic records, some kind of library out there in the universe, the raw material I've been going over, and others, including here, Evelyn Underhill, discussing these issues back there in 1911 with about 40 years experience and writing many books. I just thought it might be kind of a good idea to see what she has to say on the subject and talk about it. All right. They are the media by which the self receives spiritual stimulus, is reproved, consoled, encouraged, and guided on its upward way. Moreover, they are frequently coordinated. The voice and the visions go together, collaborate one another, and work outright in relation to the light of the self. Thus, St. Catherine of Siena's mystic marriage was preceded by a voice, whichever said in answer to her prayers. There are many examples throughout history of people seeing beings or entities or people in their prayers or in their dreams or waking up at night. No shortage of that psychic research. No shortage of psychics helping find people, solve murders, finding water, finding gold. I will espouse thee to myself in faith. This is St. Catherine. And the vision in which that union was consummated was again initiated by a voice saying, I will this day celebrate solemnly with thee the feast of the betrothal of thy soul. Even as I promised, I will espouse thee to myself in faith. So can our souls engage in relation with these beings? Such automatisms are these, says Delacroix, are by no means scattered and incoherent. They are systematic and progressive. They are governed by the interior aim. They have, above all, a technological character. They indicate the continuous intervention of a being at once wiser and more powerful than the ordinary character and reason. They are the realization in visual and auditory images of a secret and permanent personality of a superior type to the conscience personality. So I guess the first thing to do, most of us, including me, is to wake up to this reality that there is this other unseen reality out there. And communication can be made. So certainly that brings the belief in God and Jesus and all that stuff to reality. Muhammad helping the Arabs. Beings from the other side inspired Muhammad. Was his soul of the other side to come help his group spirit or group soul of the Arab peoples? And other religions in China and India, the Hindus. Do we have group souls, different races of people? And can one of those highly advanced souls come back to this reality to teach us and help us? This seems likely. They are its voice, the exterior projection of its life. They translate to the conscious personality the suggestions of the subconscious, and they permit the continuous penetration of the conscious personality by these deeper activities. They establish a communication between these two planes of existence. So there's a communication between the two planes of existence. And by their imperative nature, they tend to make the inferior subordinate to the superior. So in my research on psychic research, many years ago, I've got plenty of books on that. Big, thick books. And you can see, I've read this stuff. So you get a book like this, Phantasms of the Living. Phantasms. That's like a plasma being, a ghost appearing before you. Look at this. Years ago when I got into this research, this line of research, these were some of the first books I got. Thought Transference. Look at the top of that. So in books like this, there are incidences documented, many, thousands. Like I said, during the 1800s, there were the Psychic Research Society of Europe, and then there was the Psychic Research Society of America. So prior to World War II, thousands of readings and documented cases, hundreds of books like this. I've made previous videos on that topic of people, maybe a son that dies in a war or a husband. And back then they didn't have the internet or telephones in the 1800s. And the mother or the wife would wake up for some strange reason in the middle of the night and there would be standing the ghost of her husband or her son to say goodbye. He got killed in battle, or maybe an accident in a car. And then days later, the courier would come with the notice of the dead family member. And the woman would say, I already know. He appeared at my bedside to say goodbye. There's no shortage of stories and cases. So again, my point is we need to wake up to these pieces of information, these mysticism, and the fact that they can use witchcraft or voodoo or Kabbalah for certain people for their own advantage to the disadvantage of the rest of us. That's all I'm saying. There's more to reality than we all know. So the first step is for we the people to wake up. After that, it becomes easier. We can't be so easily deceived. We won't fall for this new age, new world order. Global warming, climate change, sustainability, biodiversity, giving them power over us, which according to even the channeled entities themselves, in the material I've been going over, there's this big ascension happening, this big catastrophe looming in our future, immediate. They're even talking about Planet X, Nibiru, pole shifting, World War III, and so much more. Are these forces trying to deceive us, and are they going to fool us? Will we believe it and buy it? Will Project Bluebeam really be executed? Will they have holographic images in the sky? We hear things with our ears. Will we believe it when we're actually being deceived? So we need to all contemplate, meditate, think, and pray, communicate with our higher self and God, so we can find out the truth. And that can't be a bad thing. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.